Welcome. It's another session with Time with the Captain. We just finished up two three-part series. One was on anger and the other one was on karma. I hope you enjoyed those. It was fun doing the research on that. So we're going to jump into, I guess, a heavy topic, I guess, the only way to really truly describe this. And there's going to be 6 altogether. So I hope you watch all 6. And I titled it Resilience. One of the things in our careers, if you're going to make this a career versus just a job, is that we as a people have to become resilient. So I actually started looking this up in the Bible. What is resilience? What does the Bible have to say about resilience? And I could not find in the Strong's Concordance where it had the word resilient. And I'm like, come on, God, this is crazy. We know that God's people are resilient. You just got to listen to Moses' story and Joseph's story and David's story and all these Bible characters that went through these crazy things had to have some sort of resilience, some sort of push to get them to where they were supposed to be in their godly moments. So I found out as doing some research that it wasn't so much about the resilience as it was steadfast, long-suffering. These are all words that the Bible used to describe someone with resilience. So that just kind of morphed into and kept morphing into this 6-part series on, I'm going to still title it Resilience. So there's 6 of these. The very first session of this is going to be called The Trauma. So we deal with trauma. We deal with trauma all the time. And it doesn't have to be like the overtly, car crash, blood and guts everywhere trauma. But every crisis that we come into is a trauma in someone else's life, right? I mean, no one calls 911. No one calls for the police. No one calls for the fire department because they want to invite us for tea and crumpets. They want to have dinner with us. Every once in a while, you get the little old lady who just needs somebody to talk to. And those are kind of special moments. But for the most part, they're in a crisis. And how little that crisis may seem to us is a huge crisis to them. Something we should never forget. With a daily job and how it goes on, sometimes that happens. However, we get exposed to trauma and little crises over and over and over and over and over. And if you understand where I'm coming from, I'm going to explain it to you. There's this thing called the OODA Loop. OODA Loop. OODA Loop. Colonel Boyd discovered this, and it is how our brains work. And the more I dive into this, the more I understand how we deal with trauma and how it affects our off days. Believe me, is all a part of this OODA Loop. This is we first responders. We train this way, right? When we train to do a task, when we train to do a skill, we do that step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, repeat. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, repeat. Right? That's basically OODA Loop, and it stands for observe what we see, orientate what we are orientating ourselves to. Then we have to decide, make a decision. We act on that decision, and then it goes back through a loop. So observe, orientate, decide, and act. OODA loop, and it just keeps going in a loop. Now there's a implicit guidance control or a automatic action, your automatic nervous system, right? So like if you're a police officer and someone raises a weapon, you have your weapon out before your brain even knows what's going on or cognitively understands. It's a protection thing, but we also can train that way. It's how firefighters train in search and rescue. It's how paramedics train with IVs and intubation. It becomes like the second skill that we just know how to do. When it comes to trauma in our jobs, if we are constantly in everybody's crisis, we are observing and orientating to everybody's crisis, that on our off days, some of the explanations of why we self-destruct could be answered in the fact that it's in our OODA loop. Like if the day's going fine and all of a sudden it just blows up, I have to find myself questioning sometimes, did I do that? Because I'm so used to being just go, 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 or constantly in somebody else's crisis. Did I make a crisis that caused everybody so I can fix it and I feel like I've done something of the day? I don't know. I think it's a question we should all examine. It's no surprise that the first O is observe. Everything we observe goes into our brain, right? The eyes are like the windows to everything we take in. And fascinating enough, the Bible says something about that. And it's right here in Matthew 6:22. And I'll read it, just what it says. It says, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thy eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thy eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be dark, how great is that darkness? Now, obviously I'm reading from the King James Version. Sometimes it gets a little confusing. So I just unpack that verse a little bit. And it basically comes down to this. What we are seeing, what we are putting into ourselves is what we are programming our thoughts, our emotions, our minds, all that stuff. Which in the OODA loop, on the observation phase, it's always taking in new information. It's diving into that. It's moving that information in and out of our emotions and our heart and our soul and our mind. It's all connected. So if all we are concentrating on and all we are seeing day in and day out is crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis, we are training our nerve synapses, our brains in that observation mode of the OODA loop, that it's crisis that we deal with. So it's no surprise to me that some days we go home and if there's not a crisis, we may create one on ourselves. And then we fix it. And then we feel good about our day. And we've done it subconsciously. We didn't even know we did it. What's even more frustrating is as the trauma grows and all this stuff packs on top of us and we get more and more and more into this profession, if your home life is in crisis, which can be, right? Between kids and maybe there's a marital issue or, friendship issues or whatever. So you go to work and you deal with everybody else's crisis. And then you come home and you're dealing with crisis, right? That builds up. We have a breaking point and we explode, or some people retreat, or, people numb themselves with whatever. That begins to build this ball. And kind of like in the Indiana Jones, right, where you see that big boulder rolling down and he's running, I think we get to those points as first responders where that's what it feels like. I'm running from this great big ball of whatever is going to run me over and smash me. And we're going to talk about this over the next 6. But I just wanted to establish that point that our eyes and what we see are windows and light. So we have to establish ourselves in something good. You have to be able to come home from work, and for either the drive home from work, the time that you have to separate at home, to unload and separate all the crises we've been dealing with and retrain your brain, so to speak, your OODA loop, that this is my space. This isn't crisis space. This isn't anybody else. This is my space. One of the best and easy ways to do that is praise and worship music. Right? And I know some people think, it's Christian music, it's tambourine playing, and you get these visions in your head. But there's some incredible praise and worship music. If not, sometimes just closing your eyes and just starting to say, Jesus, thank you. Thank you for my car. Thank you for my house. Thank you for all this stuff. We have to start to peel that away out of our OODA loop. If we get to that point where we can just start to separate and we start to separate that space, all that building, all that dumping, all that crisis gets moved out. And it happens just by turning on some praise music and singing as loud as you can and just being thankful over and over and over. Be thankful, be thankful, be thankful. Make that separation, make that space. You can do it. And my mantra is always this, right? Be safe. Go home. Make a difference.